This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we'll begin with the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome to the Marion County Commission meeting, February 7th. We'll begin with public forum. There's no one in the room, but is there anyone online? Comments?
No, there is no one online right now.
All right. They know we've got exciting business to do today. Everybody's just can't wait. Next item being agenda approval. We will look at moving the tax sale RFP recommendation of Susan Berg from 2:15 to 12:45 and move EMS Travis down to Susan's slot at 2:15. Any other additions or changes to the agenda? If not, we'll move forward into administrative business. Tina?
Okay. You have the senior citizens of Marion County information and revenue reports. We do have some change orders today.
We'll just send them back to them then. That's what we're about.
All right. There's the change orders.
Okay, and I have the minutes of January 31st.
All right, any additions or corrections to the minutes of January 31st? If not, is there a motion to approve? So moved. Motion by Jonah, second by Commissioner Dahlke. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. 5-0.
I may have to catch somebody's attention up there.
We do have early checks, and you might notice on the table there was a corrected or updated amount, we had a bond payment that needed to be made for improvement district number 2. So the revised total for the early checks is $22,617.99.
And that whole difference is the bond payment?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait a second. Yes, because it would be, their debt service payment is $21,897.66. So that would be added to what was in the packet.
Okay, is there a motion to approve early checks?
So moved.
Okay, motion by Kent, is there a second? Second by
Second.
Jonah. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carried 5-0.
Next thing I have is pay application number 7 for the ambulance station in the amount of $38,965.53.
Everyone's had a chance to look at that. Any questions? If not, is there a motion to approve pay application number 7?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Donkey, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't looking up. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Crowfoot. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carried 5-0.
Okay, and if you, spend your money on that. I do have 3 salary cheat sheets.
Okay, we have a salary change for Kim Ross from 2,300 to 2,347, effective 3/7/2022. We have a salary change for Jessica Gilbert to $17.81 per hour, effective 2/22.
And that one's a no change in salary, it's just removing the paid holidays and removing the interim status.
Okay. And then Kelly Olson to $16.13.
Which departments are that?
Okay, the first one was the health department, second one is health department, last one is ambulance, new paramedic.
Okay.
Sorry, I need to read more detail.
No, just all the stuff they put in. Put it on the big screen now.
I'm just practicing for when we get our new system.
Yeah.
This way I can still look at that.
That way people can see who's in the room and not just the document all the time.
What is it?
Chairman never has to show his face.
Come on now.
Oh, yeah. I think we've got a plan to fix that. Yeah.
No.
Get to the table too.
Executive authority.
Thought maybe that was a perk.
There we go.
No,
Oh,
it was,
gotcha.
it was part of the engineering to make sure the chairman got included.
Oh, come on now.
Okay, what else do we have here?
I believe that's all I have on.
Administrative distribution?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Susan, thanks for
Hello.
coming in early.
Oh, no problem.
I know it's a long travel, but again.
Yes.
We do appreciate the changes in schedule, so come up to the hot seat.
No, it's good. Not
Okay.
just great, it's good.
See, now you can do the camera again.
Yeah, I don't get that.
You just gotta look at it that way.
Here we go.
We'll have to keep
Hello. So Tina and I and Brad, we've reviewed the two top candidates. And from my perspective, I don't think we'd go wrong with either one of them. I think they both bring experience to the table, and they are both definitely qualified to do this. You know, one candidate provides more tracking, paperwork tracking type of a thing. The other one has current photos. I mean, there's kind of a give and take on all of that. So I guess I'll bounce it back to you, gentlemen, because I really don't have a preference, quite honestly. I know that, Brad, if you want to express your preference.
Well, and it's not a strong preference. After we had met last week, made a few phone calls, and then I also candidly made contact with our candidates, but in particular, I had some specific questions for the Kelly Law Firm. I don't know how she pronounces that first name. Katie?
How does she pronounce that?
She said it several times and I still
it
didn't get it.
Kita?
Yeah, it was something different than I thought it was. The one thing that had been of at least some impression to me was that Glenda discussed the fact that they were committed, or they had previously in an instance where there was a potential for loss, depending on how they define that. Because that was one of the things I wanted to inquire about. You get certain fixed costs like security first or an abstractor. That isn't necessarily always part of that, and they don't necessarily agree to reduce theirs. There's a, you know, is it, in other words, those fees can be adjusted a bit, but not necessarily always related to what you were being charged elsewhere.
So, translating that, I think what Brad means is that in Glenda's proposal, they said that anything still outstanding at the end, like what, if we didn't recover it, that they reduce their fees to help us recover that cost. So we potentially wouldn't pay anything up, over out of pocket.
But it doesn't necessarily include the title work and that
Right,
sort
but
of
the
thing.
title work, we
And
pay,
that's
we
separate.
add that fee to the tax.
Right.
So, the way we wouldn't recover it would be as if a property doesn't sell.
Right.
And when we spoke with them, they said that they would reduce their fee to cover if something didn't sell.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know if they're really able to do that or not, you know, but
That's
that's
the
what
other
was
question.
in their proposal.
Right.
And that was one of the stronger things, I think, that was in
Yes.
their proposal.
Definitely.
That's fairly important too, because we have had properties that didn't sell.
And they're gonna be more expensive now, because we're adding the fees, the legal
So we
fees,
will
the
probably
title
have a few
fees.
more.
We could,
And then you can counterbalance that a bit by the fact that Kelly could potentially, depending on how, the way they were describing how they charge, could be a little bit less expensive than Glenda, so over the top. So you go, as Susan was saying, you go back and forth a bit with that. I asked in terms of their tracking process, what they could provide to us in the event that the county clerk or treasurer had a question about certain types of things we've seen in the past. And they really do have pretty much the same capability. It's a smaller setting, so you're not going to necessarily have a dedicated paralegal clerk or legal assistant for that purpose. But that dedication also, when you're dealing with Glenda, a lot of it goes to Sedgwick County because that's a pretty significant client for them, meaning that a lot of those hours are already being tied up in that regard. So I tended to lean toward Kelly, not because there's anything wrong with what Chris and those guys do, and certainly I think they probably, in terms of hours spent doing these kinds of things, have more hours, but there is a point at which that's an element of diminishing returns. Because once you know the process and you do it, you know, whether you've done it for 10 years or 30, you've seen most everything that we're going to typically see. The other advantage that I did see with Glenda is the fact that Chris raised the issue, you know, kind of the free advice element of things, anything related to tax. Susan could call, or Tina could call, I could call, and they would give us their input. I asked about that with Kelly, and she said, oh yeah, we get that with some frequency as well. And she just didn't even really think of it to mention it per se. So they stack up with each other pretty well. I don't know, like I said, I don't think you necessarily go wrong with either one. I just had a smaller firm sense of a little bit more personal attention, perhaps. So
Yeah, we kind of felt the same way too, that the small, that would be the benefit of a smaller firm, would be more personal.
Especially this first year, since we're trying to figure this all out and we'll all have a bunch of questions and concerns. So.
What about the long term and 10 years down the road? Are we looking for long-term partnership or this year by year?
Well, I think initially you want to try it for a year and see what you've got. Certainly you hope that this is something that perpetuates itself. I would think you don't want to keep going back over and having to relearn.
Kelly is just a small two-person operation.
Yeah, they are, but have been around for quite a while, and it doesn't appear that anyone is leaving there anytime soon. Plus, the owner is the one that was here. The Glenda firm has been around a long time as well. Chris, he's a little time. He's probably one more likely, and Michelle would still obviously be there or something. So I think in terms of the perpetuity portion of it, I wouldn't be overly concerned that either one is going anywhere in the near term. So.
Other comments? Johnny, you were about to...
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, that's what I picked up from Kelly, especially if we're thinking, okay, we're gonna add all these fees, and it's gonna go into the tax sale, it may not sell. Well, they are also providing some pictures and stuff that will actually be handy to put on the website to do the post-market sale.
Commissioner Dawkins?
Since we're sort of fishing in a new water spot here, right? Would there be any benefit to try one year and one the next year? Or would that be a waste of time?
I think we ought to run with one, and then
See what the experience
and then if
is.
we don't like them, then check it.
Okay.
And in the RFP, we said a 1-year contract with the potential of expanding,
Yeah.
extending it for at least 2 more years. So where if we really like whoever you go with, we could potentially approach them about doing the same thing for the next 2 years at the same price or something to be negotiated and go into a little bit longer term with them.
That was the other thing that I'm glad that jogged my memory. I was curious about how fees had escalated in the last few years, and they're both fairly stable in that regard and didn't give any indication that they were looking at doing something significantly different than they priced here in the short term, and by that I mean the next few years. No one can guarantee anything for an extended period of time, and they said actually more of the volatility comes from the abstractor. They've experienced significantly greater fees in the last few years than they had for a long period of time. But they said in terms of theirs, they kind of built it into this range, and that it's had been fairly stable. So.
Well, and I'm hoping that once we get past these first couple of years, that we won't have as many to deal with on an annual basis. It's probably gonna take a few years to kind of flush all that out, but, that's what I'm hoping for, anticipating. Once we get on a cycle and the people anticipate this, I think that will help our cause.
I think it also, once they realize, shoot, they're gonna remember us a lot more quickly, and this is gonna go through a fairly expeditious way. Those that are on the fence and kind of stretch it out and play that game will not do it as readily as they have in the past. And that first letter may even get greater impact than it does currently, or would currently, with those who think, oh, I've got time, they're not gonna do anything.
And before I leave, I'll leave this, and I can also email it to you, Brad. But I've got kind of a final, hopefully, a final draft for that, so.
Has Tina seen it? Because she's gonna,
I'll give one to her too. She and I have been talking and I put one together, so.
I think the staff kind of likes to chew on it, so we have to let
Okay.
them do
I'll be happy to email it. Because I'm eager to get this
Yeah.
process started as well.
Right. We're in a fortunate position that we do have two very highly qualified candidates. Again, this is a long-term project that we're hoping is going to reap benefits for the county and for the citizens. The first couple of years is going to be a lot of work for whoever is awarded and for the staff. But once we have this system in place, I think it's really going to help everybody. So with that being said, any more comments, questions from the commission on guidance?
I'll need to abstain.
Okay.
Would pictures be an asset or hindrance? I mean, if it show a picture of the dilapidated building?
Regardless of the condition, I think
It
the more
saves you a trip.
information, the better.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want someone, I don't think it's beneficial to anyone for someone to think they're getting
Yeah.
something they're not getting.
Even though it
We've
says-
run into that problem.
Even though it
in the
says
past.
Main Street, it's not
It's
a,
not.
not a price.
Yeah, or Heavenly Drive or whatever it might be. $1 million circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's not mislead people. So I would say there's definitely value in as much information as possible.
I feel like most of the consensus in the room is leaning towards the Kelly, and I think that's the motion I will make.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Garing to accept the proposal from Kelly Law Firm for the tax sale process. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Dalkey. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. One
One
abstention.
abstention.
Okay, 4 in favor, 1 abstention. Thank you,
Thank you.
Susan and Tina and Brad, for your research.
Good luck.
Yeah, now that
It'll be
we're.
interesting to say the least, but this is I think a step in the right direction. Okay.
So what's the timetable?
Well, gotta get this letter figured out. I mean, that's something that we need to talk to Kelly Law about, because I don't wanna rush this, but I also don't want to drag this out, you know, any longer than we have to. Right now, I'm still short a person in my office.
You'd have a tax sale in the fall? Is that what we're shooting for?
let's see.
I'm just asking a question.
Is it possible?
When
Yes.
this time next year?
Because we're not into March yet.
It'd probably be fall to winter.
Mhm.
Because I think the concern in the past, and you know, this is something, I'm going to go to a new treasurer's training in Topeka Wednesday, and I'm gonna ask a consensus on that,
You'll
because
come back
I have
with-
my idea of what I think, because we don't, we've had it where it intertwined with our regular taxes, and it wasn't a real good idea to do that. I mean, it just really complicated some things. And then other times, but the timing is where it won't work is a small window. I mean, so I'm gonna visit with the other treasurers and see what they recommend.
I'm just curious.
Yes, I mean, I wanna do the time that will work out the best in my office too, where we're not, you know, having any kind of a, you know, complicated issue or something,
Yeah.
so keep it simple. Okay.
Something that, I don't know where this falls at, but if all the properties are handed to X person, whether that's Kelly, whether it's, and Kelly hands them to security title or whatever, I would like to see that dates that it was handed and how long it's taken
Sure.
to go through here, because there has been some conversation that's in the past about time taking, where it fell down at. One might be blaming the other one, I don't want that.
Well, I like the spreadsheets that I've seen with the other attorneys that applied for this, and I think a spreadsheet of sorts And I can provide that in my office, where, you know, these properties are up, here are the results, here's what's been paid, here's what's going on to the sale, here's what's been handed over to the abstract company, you know, with the dates, and, you know, that's my intention, because
Good.
this is gonna be kind of a big project, this
Yeah.
first time
Yeah.
around.
Oh, yeah.
And I wanna keep track of it as well. And I think the only way to really do that is with some sort of a spreadsheet, because otherwise,
It's almost a necessity, because
I
that
think
way
so,
you
too.
look at it and say, here, January 1st, we
Yeah.
did this. May 1st, we did this. July 1st, we did that.
and if nothing else, just for the next year,
Yeah.
the next
Yeah.
series.
Both
Yeah.
were also willing to create that from their perspective if we needed it, because I
Okay.
wanted to know too.
Great,
Just a status update type
Yeah.
of a project spreadsheet.
okay.
Cool.
Yeah, I want one for my benefit, so I know where everything's at and
Mhm.
where we're at with things, because I'd never be able to keep all this straight, plus the rest of the things
Mhm.
going on in there. So, I need that for me.
Very good.
Okay.
That's what we're doing for us, for you, Susan. See you.
Thanks.
No,
All right.
it's very.
I understand, yes, it's gonna benefit the county for sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have Josh. I don't know if he's,
He was out for, to see his feet, but
there he is, good deal. We're actually running ahead today.
All right.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Josh.
And the rest of
I was gonna ask the last time, I'll start off with that, is, last year we donated, or my department donated $150 to the County Weed Directors Association Scholarship, and I did 150. Is that, can I do that again this year?
Is there any opposition or concern?
For Marion County person.
It's the scholarship funds for the, as it goes, we sell stuff at our convention. And then that money goes into scholarships. And last year, we did $1,500 per applicant, and there was 5 applicants, or chosen applicants out of all the districts.
Do you want us to sign that?
Yes, please. Print and your name and address, especially if you're gonna speak.
Is there
I
a
just-
1 o'clock meeting?
We have members from the public that are coming in, so we're gonna take a minute just to let people know. If you're here for the VFW discussion, or the lake discussion, that'll be at 1:30. So it's up to you if you wanna wait in the room, or if you wanna wait outside. It could get kind of long.
Yeah.
regardless, when you come back, it needs to be signed in.
Sorry about that, Josh, sorry.
And I was wondering where it's ending up at, that's what.
Yeah, it goes, the whole state, each county, we ask them to donate or get donations from businesses and all that. It goes into the scholarship fund, and then we have applications we go through, and we choose 1 kid per district, and then we help.
Not to come back to trash or anything like that, it could be for college or something like that.
It goes towards college, but they have to be going into an ag field,
Oh,
for college. And they
okay.
have to be enrolled to be able to
Okay.
get the money.
Okay. No more questions.
Okay, is there a motion to allow Josh to proceed with the donation of $150 to the scholarship fund? The motion was made by Commissioner Gearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Becker. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carried 5-0. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you guys. The last time we was talking about the transfer station, just over the grain of what we were doing. I know there's some questions about that, and the grain that anybody mixes up wrong or something and brings us, we do charge that out at $50 a ton. You know, it don't go free for them, because you know, that it's a business. They're, you know, they have their own trash that gets picked up that gets charged out too, but this is extra that we do charge out for.
How do you know if there's anything extra coming in from any?
We don't, we just it's just whatever the trash trucks pick up and bring in, you know, that's, you know, they make their own special trips in with their own trucks and stuff. That's the only reason we
Right.
get them on that one.
Other questions?
Have the Weebies brought any trash in?
Yeah, they have. They kind of, they're getting a schedule, come in last week, or, Sue, did you text me on that one? Or it was been a couple weeks ago, but they're coming in and stuff, and they're getting their name out there, so it's good we're getting somebody out there. Gives me a place I can send people that, hey, we need, call these people, you know, it's
Yeah.
good. I'm
It's
glad
good
that
to have a
somebody's
referral.
doing something, yeah.
We have a question in regards to last Wednesday.
Okay.
There ended up being an issue by having the transfer station closed with one of the cities because of their daily pickup.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, do we have any kind of formal policy for closing? Do we need to?
I mean, it's something, you know, we're trying to keep everybody safe, and it
Yeah.
was just an oversight. Didn't get down to the molecular level that
I came in for a couple hours on Tuesday or Wednesday, made it into town to make notes, and I called all our trash services to kind of let them know, hey, you know, we're closed due to weather piece of it and stuff, and I've called and left message, nobody called back, and figuring it.
I guess it was the next day that Jonah and I got a call.
Okay, yeah.
Too late then.
But
it was more of a, hey, think about us before you do this next time.
Mm-hmm.
that's why I'm just wondering if we need to have a policy of some type in regards being that we do have at least one community that delivers every day.
Yeah.
So,
How do you want to go about drafting a policy?
that's a good question. You know, we thought the storm may be even worse than it was, even though it was kind of bad. But, you know, safety, like
Yeah.
we were saying, safety is the number one issue, so that would still have to be incorporated into whatever that policy would look like.
Communication is still the key.
Right.
You know, and it sounds like Josh made the effort to contact,
Yeah.
but evidently somebody didn't get contacted, is that right?
Yeah.
Probably nobody's in the office.
soon enough.
Well, I had the numbers to the driver, so I was able to try contacting him, you know, whether that's the one I'm thinking of, but, you know, I did make contact at least with all our services that are coming in, so. You know, it's one of them, if we do it, you know, if I can make it in town, I'd come in the afternoon and, you know, open it up for just the trash trucks in the afternoon, if that's what we, you know.
Yeah, and that was expressed. It was, in the past, that has taken place.
But he's way out, 6
Yeah.
miles in the country.
Yeah.
On a road that's snowpacked,
But-
drifted shut. You probably couldn't get to town.
County roads were better that Wednesday than they were the highway was, so I took.
But you would still
But
have several employees that live in town.
I have a couple that live in town that, you know, at least one of them, if I can make him, one of them could probably come help me if I need be. I just gotta talk to them and find out, you know, if they'd be willing to. I know they would, but I'm not gonna.
Get some overtime.
You're talking about policy. I think you need to divide our services up. You have some services that just gotta run.
Mm-hmm.
You don't shut the clock, you don't shut the door, they gotta go.
Right.
I think this one needs to be one of them.
Yeah, other services could wait till the next day. But
Yeah, and if he can make arrangements, like he's talking like he wants to, possibly, but like you said, you've got one city that's coming and if they can't hold their trash till the next morning, why?
it puts them back behind for.
Yeah.
Just
And
to
it takes
take-
a week to get caught up.
Yeah, if we could accommodate them, just back in and dump it, you know.
Well, they should maybe call when down come bad weathers, you know.
Well, Josh kinda did that anyway.
No, I mean, the trash service, the truck before they come all the way over here. Because everything else is shut down that day.
Well, maybe let's back up on the timing of the calling. As soon as the county determines we're going to be closed for the day, and as soon as the transfer station is notified they're going to be closed,
It was on the
they need to be
it was on the
making.
website the night before.
Well, but they need to contact the trash services as soon as you know.
Mhm.
Two-way street, I feel that they should maybe contact us too. It's a double check.
But
But they wouldn't know we're closed.
Before I go to the
unless
airport,
we
I'm gonna
contact
call them, see if they're open. I mean,
yeah,
It's a corporation.
I get where you're coming from, Dave. I think it's more of us providing them a service for the county fee. So if we're providing the service, we should be notifying the client.
And if that doesn't seem to be an issue with how you operate, try to work around it.
Mhm. And, to me, it doesn't matter, you guys make the call. If those bad weathers, we wanna close it down, we'll close it down. If we wanna be open in the afternoon for them services to come in, I can work around it and get things set up when we get to that point again.
Because, some of the industrial places, factories and stuff, they're not gonna close unless people just flat can't get there. And they usually fill dumpsters.
Yeah.
We've got a big enough area that if we up our trailer service, that we can set a day without having to transport. You didn't transport that day, did you?
No.
I wouldn't think so, but, so we gotta figure out our own policy here to get ourselves in line and then, go from there, really. I see this both ways. I mean, he's tried, we need a number to call, if that town has a number to call on any certain time, we need to call that number the minute we find out and let them know, so they can at least call us, or, that, to me, it's in his ballgame when we do that, too.
What about liability? If we had like an RF reader at the gate, then if they showed up, at least they could dump. I know that's,
Mhm.
then you guys wind up coming to work the next day and geez.
Yeah,
But
that'd be
still,
a question, I guess.
is there a liability for
Is
the
that
city coming up
pragmatic
and
to do
dumping?
it that way? 'Cause there's nobody there to watch what they do.
There's nobody to watch what they do, they gotta know where the lights are, cause it's
Yeah.
pretty dark on there, and if they back up too far, they can go into the pit,
That's where your liability question
that's-
starts to cause me some strain.
Yeah, I'd sooner rather have one or two people there when they are there to be able
You
to,
don't want trash in the pit.
no,
Yeah.
no.
I was just trying to think outside the box,
Yeah.
besides weather. What if they're running late one day and prevents them from getting behind, then the next day they could get a late load in,
Mhm.
that kind of thing.
But it might be better to call and see if something can be worked out with somebody
Right.
there.
No, I was just trying to,
Sure.
trying to hammer something else
Right,
Mhm.
another idea.
with this.
Are the trash services pretty good about, all of a sudden they blew out a tire or something, we're gonna be there a little late?
Sometimes they do, but other times they'll just hold on and bring it in the next morning. They're usually there by a little before 8 o'clock and waiting on us to get everything opened up and going at 8 o'clock, so.
Because most of them want to go home at 4 o'clock, they don't want to work overtime.
Right, yeah, but I was just trying to think if there was something, especially with those entities, that
Mhm.
The Weebies might come in.
they need your service as bad as anybody in order to provide their service, so.
Yeah.
Some of them, they're pretty prompt. Most of the ones around us,
Mhm.
I say most, 3 that I can think of that I've had any reason to check. They have, let's say they're shutting it down at 5, they stop taking it, and they've got odd hours now. It's not 4:30, it's 4:20,
Mhm.
4:25, or whatever, with the intent being that 5 o'clock we are gone and it's dark here.
Mhm.
And they don't, if somebody calls and says it's gonna be 5:10, well, then it's gonna be tomorrow. But knowing that, you get some of these private citizens and stuff that do that, and now you can look down the ditch for the last mile going there, and there are tires and junk and all that just got thrown out, because if you're, well, fine, I'm get rid of it one way or another, but
Drove this whole way.
yeah. It's a happy medium, chapter 5.
Mhm.
One, who is that? I have to look. Has an on-call person, but the user pays a fee. Kind of like an electrician or a plumber.
Mhm.
After hours, you can call this number and we do have someone we pay, a fee like $2 an hour or something overnight,
Yeah.
be available to come and do it if it's a desperate situation. But you are gonna pay an extra fee for
Mhm.
dumping at that point.
That doesn't work very well in Marion County.
Well, it sounds
I
like,
figured out how to make it work.
sounds like in lieu of a policy, communication is our best.
I try to think, and for them, try to let our services know that,
The key would be as soon as possible,
Okay.
just as soon as you
Okay.
go.
Get all the phone numbers in your phone, I guess, probably.
I think I got pretty much all of them. I've got, the new one, the Weebies, I need to get them programmed in there and stuff, so.
Well, yeah, like the notice said, it seems like this event just kind of threw them off guard, because
Yeah.
in the past, you've always found a way to accommodate or figure something out. So
Mhm.
it's like this one, there wasn't.
And, it's, something I can look at too. We do that, let them know I'll open up from 1 to 4, and, those services can be for the cities or anybody bringing in trash there, so. They're definitely working on something.
Appreciate it, Josh. Thank you, exactly. Any other further discussion on that one? Okay. Commissioner Dalkey had brought up previously about construction and commercial rates. Maybe if we could look at that more in depth in March.
Okay?
If we could kind of be prepared in March to have a little work session or something on it. I'll give you a month.
Yeah, could you get a little information maybe from the surrounding counties,
Okay.
their rates, those kind of things?
Okay.
I think it'd be just a good informational session.
I do concentrate on the ones, transfer stations. I don't,
Right.
and stuff that do the same thing we do. That way, kind of, we apples to apples on that. So I
Very
do
good.
that, so.
Very good.
But on our rates, it would have to be in another county that would have the same service fee that we have, or some similar to our
Similar,
service fee.
yeah.
Right,
You know,
right,
to-
and maybe you could work with Josh on what.
I'm gonna have to ask Tina to find out who that is, because I don't know how many of them are around, or maybe you have a way to find out who has trash rates in their county. Sewer, or trash rates, not sewer rates.
The transfer station fee,
Yeah.
I'm not for sure who,
Just have to
I was
ask- just have
looking,
to ask 'em, I guess.
the ones we did, when we did this a year or two ago, when we went up from $40 to $50, I'd concentrate on the ones who did C&D and household trash all in one spot, and ask them what their least construction, their C&D rate was. That way we was kinda all in the.
I know we reviewed it either last year or the year before.
And I can't quite remember exactly where, but.
Would you have any way to estimate how many tons that you have yearly?
Of C&D,
Yeah.
I'd have to go back to the computer. I think we.
Well, you don't need to do it now.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I can't
Yeah.
think of it,
That'd be interesting
but, okay.
to see how big a problem acid and the others
Okay.
service.
Trouble is, every year's gonna be different.
Yeah.
We had
Last year we
that,
had shingles last
I
year.
can say last year, just a couple years ago, whenever we had that big hailstorm come through,
Last year,
we had a lot of C&D there, so,
Yeah. Whole town of Marion got new rules.
pretty much.
So we'll maybe shoot for middle, late March.
That'll work.
Have
Okay.
time to gather some information.
Okay.
We can go more in depth on
Okay.
reviewing it.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you,
Is that it?
Josh.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Okay, Lloyd.
Morning.
IT discussion, which everybody is just anxiously awaiting.
That's why I gave you 15 minutes.
Can't even get warmed up in 15 minutes.
Yeah, I know. I put more people to sleep. Well, I've got two things I want to discuss. One, do they have both these?
Yeah.
First one's probably short and sweet. It's about the quotes for, mini workstations for appraiser's office. I think Vicki's been here before.
Yeah.
Okay. We've re-quoted this about 3 or 4 times, and we reapproached it, but they haven't pulled the trigger. I've kind of listed down below what we have that's current, that's available through quotes and through the CDWG government contracts. Nikki was looking at both replacing 3 devices. It's Brian, Emma, and herself. Nikki's been having a problem with the PC in there for months, but it goes along and freezes up, and it's, several of these are almost 8 years old, so they needed to be done a while back, but now they're starting to hurt. She also was going back and forth discussing whether or not to go with laptops in case somebody wanted to go out in the field, although I think she's leaning just to replace the minis and their desktops at this point. I don't know if she's got plans for additional laptops, you know, on top of this, but I know we need to replace these 3. So the first one on the list, that Lenovo with 117272, it's got a smaller hard drive. That would probably work okay for them. They don't like the i5s, which is the 3rd one down on the list, just because we're starting to slide on the tech spectrum. I mean, the i9s are out, and I mentioned in here you're paying $150, $200 premium for the i9s. But if you get the i9s, pay that now, you will buy yourself several years more within the specifications spectrum, where they don't go obsolete so fast. And we've had pretty good luck with that. That's why we're running some things right now that are 8 years old. I've had that at other places too. We looked at both the i7s and the i9s here. Those 2 that basically we got for clerk's office, the Dell at the i7s and the Lenovo gives us a good base hard drive of 512. Nikki's gone back and forth. I don't know if she really wants to go with the i9. She can, but you're paying quite a premium for that. So, I guess I need to get some sort of decision on signing off on these.
What's the recommendation?
My recommendation would probably be going with the i9 for Nikki and i7s for the 2 other ones.
So we're looking at 3 total, right?
3 total.
3 total.
Although Nikki could get by on the i7.
So you're talking about the Dell and the Lenovo?
Yeah, the 2 that are
Midline
broken
there?
out.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of leaning towards. It's a 16 gig and a solid state, half a terabyte, so.
Yeah, they've got their server storage and all that. It's nice to have that little bit of an edge, because they do tend to put a lot of images and stuff that really rack up that storage space. So I'm a little leery of the 256 from that standpoint. Probably be okay. They might be sitting there at 180 for some reason, and you know, their performance starts.
So your recommendation would be 2 7s at 1293.01 and then 1 Lenovo at 1560.73, is that?
Right.
I'd make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Balke, and I'm not going to repeat it. It's not my language. We have a second.
I would second it.
Second by Jonah. Maybe you could.
Well, I would second the 2 quotes of MPVD 479 and 1 quote of MNPV 304.
Thank you for the translation. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carried 5-0. Thank you.
Not a hard one. We talked about a month ago, I guess I was here on the 10th, about the future obsolescence of our Exchange server. We're already in the extended support realm for our Exchange 2016. So we're not in primary support. They'll keep supporting it through 2025, I believe. I think I mentioned it in here. We looked real strongly at the Microsoft 365 options that are out there. This is about 8 pages of their options for the different plans Microsoft puts out for 365. because we're government, we need to be in the G spectrum. There's also E plans. I guess plans is the best way I can explain it. So we got G plans and E plans. Government guarantees that they have certified people working on our stuff within the United States. Everything that's hosted for our emails and stuff is kept in the United States. We will run into that with any of our audits or our discussions with the state, with the feds, anything the jail does ongoing. So we need to be in the G plans. So we looked at CDWG, look at going to Microsoft Direct plan, and on the third page here, there's a breakout of this pricing. We also have Blue Valley Communications, which we worked with for 22 years, also priced this out. They came in lowest still what we had for options. It gets a little pricey. We've been using a base number of 135 licenses. That's per user. We're actually running closer to 150 mailboxes right now, which is users, but we're dropping off. With this plan, we can drop off the distribution groups that are counted as a mailbox. So this number may come down a little bit more, but it's still, you're talking $26 a month per user. Now, the user can use it on up to 5 devices for that user, and this includes Office. So we're talking the entire Office suite. There's a lot of features with Microsoft 365. I want to say Office 365. They call it Microsoft 365 now. Things like Teams. There's also Skype that's built into it, so you got instant messaging. There's a ton of other features that are built in that we probably won't use, but it just comes with the G3 plan. So these are listing these plans. I kind of broke out the security issue a little bit that we discussed before, that it seems like the Exchange is the last one on the list for their support, not support, but some of the security issues that we see fixed already in Microsoft 365, we're waiting for patching later for Exchange. What this gets away from is our hosting, our own email server, and any of the maintenance and security issues that go along with that. So are we keeping up to date with the patches? Are we making sure we've got this latest vulnerability that came out? How does that apply to us? Microsoft's taking care of that for us, but for a price. Somebody asked me last time about how many servers they've got out there. I can't remember when we discussed this before. I did get an answer to that. It's at least 3 locations with a 4th location for failover. And we're geographically split up in the United States. So.
Yeah, I wasn't asking about servers, I was asking about redundancy.
Redundancy, yeah. So I did find out about that. The one area that, and Craig and I spent an hour on the phone this morning going over this again, because every time we start wading through this, I said, well, just feature this, feature here. One area that we're really concerned about is being able to archive our emails up to a year and recovery of emails. I very rarely get somebody say, hey, I lost this email, can you give me a copy of it? I can't think of the last time that happened. With 365, they've got 30 days, and we notify Microsoft, hey, can we get an email back if somebody lost one with the group that they needed to see. Past that, there is archiving. So we have to set that up so it's actually archived. So like if you're seeing like in your Outlook and your emails are archived, you have to go back and search for them. Have you guys had to run into that before? As opposed to just having all your emails sitting there in one big bunch. That comes with the Sheet 365 plan. One of the things we talked about, because that feature's there with having to archive for you to, because I know, I can name a few people in the county that have years of emails that they go back and search all the time.
One of those would be me.
Yeah.
Did you see him look at me?
No, there's somebody that's worse. Trust me.
But there's importance to history.
There, it is, oh yeah. I use it all the time because it tracks my.
Right. So we need to have
thread.
that option.
You can sort by person, I can go see every email Teams ever sent me with my office. I got a 365.
Yeah. We can't add on, and this is one thing Craig and I talked about, we can add on a third-party backup archiving to the cloud where we could retrieve things instantly, and we have unlimited recovery there. I'm looking at some pricing on that, but with this 365 plan, we've already got that unlimited if we configure it right. It's just gonna be a little bit more. So I may come back and talk to you about that, about being able just to instantly archive things. If we've got to wait 2 to 3 days for Microsoft to say, hey, we lost the email, would you please send it back? You know, I don't know. I think this would come in more something forensically. If you say, hey, was somebody doing something bad 3 months ago, and we have to go trace this back. We should have everything there. If we did a third-party backup of it, we could recover quicker than instead of going through Microsoft. And it may be a little bit more cumbersome doing the archiving part. The other thing we have in here, and that's one thing I will say, Tina, we're bumping up our storage constantly with certain clients' mailboxes. This starts out with 100 gig storage, and I've got some that are in 40s and 50s right now, so there's plenty of storage.
You do know we're looking at updating all of our equipment in here and stuff like that.
I knew about that. I didn't know
My
the details.
concern is whatever we do is that we don't run into a snag when we try getting it to go to this. That's all I'm
I don't
concerned
have
about.
anything to do with that.
I don't think?
No.
Okay.
It's a whole nother project.
And I think you're gonna have some better features to work with the 365, especially with the teams. You know, just after the fact.
Yeah.
Because are you looking at something similar to what they?
Trying to make sure it works for everybody. I mean, that's what's really dragging some feet, just making sure,
Okay.
not jumping into something too quick and making sure it's gonna work, especially for Tina.
Right.
And the other thing I know is that Teams seems to be, I think you mentioned the other day, was Teams seem to be a great
Yeah,
thing.
we call the team.
You like it?
Yeah.
I got people who just hate it.
One thing I don't like doing, you have to let people in.
Yeah.
I just can't sign in, join the meeting. I have
Right,
to be,
you have to have
have to be invited.
Yeah,
I've never-
that's one thing I have.
It's odd, but I've never used Teams yet, which is, I mean, and
It's easy to set up and easy to use.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It's
Easy to make a meeting.
and I don't know if it's just people going, okay, I'm used to Zoom, I'm used
Yeah.
to this.
Well, let's bring it back to the 365 Microsoft discussion. So on the 3 providers that are here, do you have a recommendation on?
We have a great working relationship with Road Valley and the community, so, you know.
So there's already the relationships established, you know the type of service you're gonna get.
Yeah, outstanding. So, in fact,
That's very important.
yeah, Craig with Blue Valley is going to set up our initial exchange, so.
can't be that close to door.
You haven't moved in.
I'll just ask him to quiet.
Yeah.
Have you had a lot of interaction with the direct line, Microsoft? I mean, is it really slow or whatever?
Actually, they've been pretty good about it. They said in the details, it says, you know, here's our performance, it'll be 2 to 3 days before we can get something back to you. Microsoft's been pretty good to work with, actually, so, correct. But they're a little pricey.
I just missed that, so I thought that was one of my,
Well, I was just
Questions
looking
here.
at the E3 plan.
oh,
We
okay.
need to be on the G3 plan.
Yes.
Right,
The
yeah.
E plan's not applicable.
Right.
But it's that way you know comparison, because people in the public are gonna say, well, you get the E plan cheaper. We have to have the cheaper.
Right. I wanted to add that in there because that's come up already. I
Yeah.
can get this a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
When we first started looking at the government side, it was like, holy cow.
Yeah.
I mean, you're paying a premium for keeping that in the United States.
We went with
But you've got a long-term relationship with Blue Valley.
Yeah, you're still going through the Microsoft, this is the Microsoft's government plan, it's just, we're getting it through them.
So, 2 things, this is the cost versus what we're paying now.
Okay,
And then my other item is any downtime considerations. So like right now, if there's some downtime, usually come
It's
on
here.
site and you can try to make something happen.
right.
what is this entail?
365 should be up in our email flow as long as we get to the internet, no matter where you're at.
Okay.
So if you've got your cell phone, you've got
I say,
internet
if we got
service.
an issue, I mean, how responsive are they gonna be to us? 'Cause
If the courthouse goes down, you can still email from Hillsborough
right.
with your Mary.
But what I'm saying is, what if they go down? What if,
Microsoft goes down.
or our link from them
The
goes
world's,
down?
the world's a bad problem.
Well, I'm just saying.
Well-
How important are we to them?
Well, yeah, we're one of the, there's
Right.
260 million Microsoft mailboxes out there, and they've got redundancy in there, so maybe us, if they go down, then there's something much bigger than us going down. But as long as we can get to the internet, they'll have hosting for mail.marincok.net available. So that means on your phones or
Yeah.
anything else, so.
My question was more is if they've got a hiccup or there's somehow we've been privy to a hole that nobody else has spotted yet, and we're asking for assistance, are they gonna jump right on it for us, or they?
That's good.
Because you do.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, they.
Yeah, we will. We see how fast we get through Microsoft.
These are my concerns, as is sometimes I get tied in with some bigger companies, and they don't really give you service as somebody local does.
As a history, because I don't have a long history of 365, I do, with some other sites have been on for several years. I've had very little, any type of downtime. I mean,
We've been on
I
it
can't
for a year
remember.
now.
If you got any,
Microsoft's been down.
if you got any issues, they respond to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Microsoft's been good about, yeah, I've been surprised. I get somebody talking to them.
Mostly just been questions.
Yeah, but as for them, if they're down, we're being attacked or something, present country.
Somebody opened the wrong email.
Blue screen of death.
Yeah.
Other
I've lost a lot of drives lately.
Other issues or concerns?
The cost versus that.
There's a whole suite also, as I mentioned here, it's called EOP, Exchange Online Presence, whatever. Exchange Online Protection. It's got the spam filtering, it has antivirus and everything. Things that you're paying for now on the anti-spam site for an asset goes away because it's being built in here. The other thing we won't be paying for is the ongoing ones and twosies. Every time we buy a new device, we have to buy Office. And that's running, close to 300 for a basic to 400 for something with access to something they need for cemetery. Yeah, it's still more expensive. The other thing is if we go to Exchange, and the next version of the Exchange server is going to be a subscription based. It's Exchange called VNext, but it's Exchange 2022, which is what we'd be going. But they're going to make that a subscription based too. We'd also be buying licenses, which run over $100 each. So there's a one-time cost with, $800 or $900 for Exchange, but that's going to change. And then user licenses for all the mailboxes we have at $100 a pop. So we're talking 16,000 to do an upgrade. So that's still less than this.
Well, yeah, but it helps understand we're going to spend anyway, and this
Right.
is how much more.
Yeah. What I really, really like about this, there's features in there like with the mobile devices. So somebody loses their phone, we can get out remotely instantly. And we've got there's security built into it that is for mobile devices too. So phones, laptops, things like that. That's one thing I really love about it.
That will last like.
Yeah, it's happening. Things get stolen, so. What else?
Includes a lot of things you've been paying individually. What we found out. It was hard to compare apples and oranges.
Microsoft is increasing their pricing on the commercial side. There's been no, that'll come down the road, I'm sure, but there's been no word about them doing on the government side. So they were talking about, $3 or $4 on mailbox. So I've been hearing that for a couple months now, just like on the commercial side. they've got, one of the things we discussed, in all this planning stuff, what's our alternative? Man, they're the only game in town for security, for hosting, redundancy, and yeah, it's worrisome from my standpoint. It's like all the eggs are in one great big basket, but at the same time, we're making out.
For a captured audience.
Don't tell Congress that, they claim they're a monopoly and try to hurt public.
So I believe we have our recommendation. For the commission be, I'd be ready to accept a motion, to accept the bid from Blue Valley Communications for Microsoft 365 G3 plan for Azure storage.
That's your recommendation.
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, John, made a motion, Dave Crowfoot seconded. Further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carried 5-0.
I wanted to discuss one last thing with this, the implementation parts of this. The email part will be probably the easiest, actually. It's not like we're just pointing where our mail.mancy.ks that goes, and it should be pretty seamless. It's the making sure we get the office replaced with the 365 version. It's gonna take a little bit of time. Hopefully it goes pretty smooth. Say that out loud. Dang it, why did I say that out loud?
Just remember when it's over, it gets celebrated.
Yeah, that's actually true. I'm not supposed to say that. That's like a cardinal rule at our place. Oh, this is fun. You don't say that.
We're not the first one, so it's been done before.
Oh. Yes, true.
Just make sure you got wood next to you.
Okay, okay.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for your
Well, wait,
patience.
one real quick question.
Yeah.
Because I'm just gonna call you anyway, I wanted to find out. In terms of compliance archiving, which you were talking about earlier, any institutional clients that you have now that have some set standard 5 years, I mean, we've got federal and state law that even like these open records kinds of questions that can come up with governing body members or any of the staff, we're required to keep that stuff.
How far back are they?
That's the
Because
question.
everything I've had so far has been a year.
And I've seen stuff that's 5.
Well, and I think that if they request something that is beyond our retention, then
Right.
we just
That's-
say,
it's
this is our
usually-
policy and we don't keep it.
Unless
So
it's
not available.
statutorily mandated, and in certain instances, we have that problem. Both at the state and federal level, which I would have to research some, because I really, there's a 3-year mandate on some things I found. I had one city ask this last week, and that's why it suddenly comes up. And if I've got governing body members who resign or who are no longer on, how long? So that one's a little easier for me to find. I think that may just be, it could even be less than a year. We could do that as a policy, but some of this, I just didn't know if there was some place you'd run into that has a complete, exhaustive, this is what you shall do. I have not yet.
Usually it's come back to what you said, it's the policy of the body. They say,
Okay.
okay, this is what we've got to step, our policy, as opposed to something overruling that. As a practice, we archive everything, our emails, so if somebody's leaving, we've got a PSD file, and we kind of have that set back and for about forever, so.
Okay.
Brad, I got cut back to 2012 on my computer.
I do too. I've never deleted anything.
Which that will probably change when we transition,
Yeah.
isn't, right? I mean, we're not gonna have access to those older ones.
Well,
Yeah,
you
we
can,
will.
yeah,
Yeah, because we changed to 365.
yeah. If it's
Back
our,
to 2009.
yeah, you can still get good.
Okay.
It's just in the archive area.
So it's just hard, maybe
Yeah.
more difficult to
Yeah,
get to.
and that's unlimited, we go back.
Oh, okay,
forever,
good.
so we'll stay there.
That may solve the problem, but okay.
We have another happy customer.
I know, I was
Thank
thinking,
you, Lloyd.
I didn't want me to cry about that.
No, please, no tears.
Nope, thanks.
Thank
I didn't
you.
realize that.
All right, we're ready for the late group.
I think it was the first time she brought that up. It's been 6 months, 8 months ago.
Which?
This, yeah.
Whatever.
Last year.
Thanks for staying on it and getting it.
Well, and
Off the
every
desk.
time you're in it, you're sitting there going, Oh, wait, and then they change the features, that's the worst thing, Microsoft is.
All right, we're ready.
Yeah, and they modify the plan.
As you come in, please sign in.
We do appreciate
We
you.
just sign in if we're gonna say something.
Finally coming to a completion.
Yeah,
It'll be like everybody
I'm
that's
looking
here
forward to
just
it.
sign in. Right, everybody that comes in.
He needs to get out.
Everybody, they could all be in here during the.
That's quite a mob.
You trying to exit?
I think so.
You're going against traffic.
Yeah, I
You
know.
wanna
This
go
might be
outside?
more interesting than what I'm leaving to.
How are you?
I guess you need a spokesman. Okay. I got the short straw. Best chair in the house.
There's some more chairs behind the door there also.
Yeah, might catch, something might catch.
I bet did you guys receive that?
Oh.
I think I got a chair.
There's some folding chairs.
Two of them. Man, you can have my chair, I'll stand. Two more up
There's,
here.
there's plenty of chairs, just some people will have to sit in the front.
I guess we can sit in front.
You got stuck there.
I'll kick your chair there.
All right.
I think there's one right up here.
These are the hot seat ones.
He's got the book. What it is.
All right, I think we have everybody signed in. Welcome to the commission meeting. We're certainly anxious to hear the comments. It looks like you've appointed a spokesperson this week.
Like I said, I got the short straw.
Short end of the straw. So we'll let you begin.
I'm Byron Lang. I think y'all know who I am. I'm a resident at the county lake. I think, I'm not familiar with everybody here. I think the majority of the people here are also residents at the county lake. And as we're on the agenda, our concern, our questions that we have are in regards to the memorial, the VFW memorial, or that's, and I guess that's some of the question is, it's been approved or what's been approved, and I think that's where we want to start is, there hasn't been a lot of information that's been disseminated to the public. So there's a lot of questions, and I don't want there to be any to jump to any assumptions.
10-foot high, tall
Well,
statues and.
exactly.
Yeah, I get it.
So where are we, and what has been approved, and what kind of guidelines are there, or are there any guidelines? And let's start there, so.
Well, obviously, it's very preliminary. The VFW approached us, the commission, for location before they could proceed with even pursuing any plans. So at that point, a location was identified as a potential site. Obviously, nothing is final. Everything is very, very, very preliminary. So my understanding is that tomorrow night, the veterans are having a meeting here in Marion, 7 o'clock, to start the discussions in the first phase of what would be appropriate, what the plans might be. So again, very, very preliminary.
Okay. I know that the county or the Lake County land isn't necessarily under the guidelines of planning and zoning, but to use that as an example, if I bring if I want to construct something, I have to have a plan, I have to be within constraints of planning and zoning, And if I have any deviations from that, to even get started, I have to have that a plan approved, and I've got to come to the commission with a plan before we even get started.
Right.
So I guess some of this seems to be, and some of it comes down to what precedent is being set or has been set already. And what also kind of comes, part of that is that there was a piece of ground that was surveyed. Also, if I come to the commission and I want something done, I do the survey, I present everything before there's even discussion about it. So I guess there's some concern, and these aren't in any particular order, but we have some concern about what precedent has been set here. What is the plan going forward?
Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to Brad to kind of explain, because you're talking about the procedure and the
Okay.
process, and obviously there is a process.
Yeah, I think the preliminary nature of it is probably, and it's gotten out there, and I understand the concerns and the questions at that point about what exactly have you guys done? I mean, it predates, I think, everyone at this bench. There were discussions long ago, as I understood it, when the guys came in terms of the veterans, saying, hey, we've discussed this previously with prior board members, and have been wanting to do this for many years. And they were really looking, I think, conceptually for, is there any support for this? Is there any thought that we could do this? And this is where it had been discussed very loosely that it would be. And they came in and reminded everyone of that, and there was some element of education that went with that. That was it. And I think then the discussion was, yeah, we're supportive of a memorial. That's about as broadly as it can be said. And then as to the survey, that can go both ways. You can either have, as you said, the property owner goes out and does this, well, we are the property owner, or it can be done by the group that wants to do some type, it's kind of a hybrid here. When you do it or I do it, it's private. I want to put something up, I'm going to put up a building, I'm going to do this. I'm going to own that, and I'm going to own it on my property. Well, here it's the county's property, the taxpayer's property, and you've got a group that's not for profit coming in and wanting to do something that recognizes participation or service. And so it's a public good kind of a thing that was done. So that does deviate a little bit. It doesn't really create, as I see it, a particular precedent in that regard, because it's very different and unique in terms of who came in and asked and why they did it. There's no personal gain per se there, where there often is with someone who's developing their own property. Does the county have to necessarily go through a lot of the same steps in terms of what they choose to do with the property? No. Is it a good idea pragmatically because the taxpayer is the ones footing the bill? Yes. In this kind of an instance, do they still have to go to planning and zoning and do everything you had to do? Absolutely. Any setback issues, any easements, everything that's out there and what can be placed there is still going to have to conform with and comport with what planning and zoning requires. So nothing in that sense has even been remotely done yet. This was them coming in and saying, hey, something we've been talking about for many years, we'd like to go forward with it now. Are you at least, is this current board at least conceptually supportive? And that's as far as that got.
Is the intent, in my mind, on my property, if I do a survey, it's either because I want to know if I'm building a fence or what exactly that property line is, or my neighbor's getting ready to sell the property, or I'm getting ready to sell the property. Is the intent to deed this over to the VFW? Yeah.
As usable space.
Yeah.
Possibly. But
Okay.
that's,
Part of the problem was, if they're like, well, okay, this road's on one side and this is over here, but there was no meets and bounds description. There was absolutely nothing for us to, dedicate for public use that piece of property to have a memorial.
Okay.
And I'm the one who would sit and say, wait a minute, I got to know what it is we're doing here, because you're taking land that's owned publicly by the county, which they have the right to go ahead and develop in that way. But we don't know how much, and I don't know where's it going to go and how much do they need. Well, we need, acre and a half. Well, where is that, and where does that lie within this? And there's other pieces on there that could be used. So the survey part of it was really just to begin to get a sense visually of what will work and how much is going to be needed and where would it go? And there was no discussion about per se dedication to VFW or feeding to them at all. None of that's been.
And again, some of this is in no particular order. I'm not that organized, but anyway. What happens now as far as a precedent being set? What happens now when the Girl Scouts want their memorial? What happens when the Boy Scouts want their memorial? What happens when the American Legion, who's different than the VFW, when they want a separate memorial? What happens when the Ku Klux Klan wants a memorial? What happens when, I mean, we can go down the list. Are we now going to become the Marion County Parks, Lakes, and Memorials? Or where does this stop? We've set a precedent. How do you say no to the next group?
I think what Brad just said was there really hasn't been a precedent set at this point.
Yeah, there's been no absolute commitment to doing it yet, other than
Well,
we're interested. And I see your point.
Yeah.
I absolutely understand. And this comes up, and I've dealt with it before. The answer many times is no. We're just not going to do that. Ku Klux Klan or someone comes in.
Well, I throw that out to
you know,
be-
and I do. And
you
but
know.
you're right. I mean, you get into how are we treated differently, as we've seen in terms of some of the litigation. Someone wants to put a certain type of a Muslim mosque in a particular location. You know, I mean, you get all different types of things, and government gets involved. And can we or can we not differentiate, or so many of them will call it. I like differentiate. They'll call it discriminate. In those instances, and that's all yet to be seen. You're right. I mean, every time this comes up, you've got to at least consider what are we doing and how are we going about doing it, and is it in public interest, and if so, whose? And that is something that you work through in each and every instance.
Well, I have a question then. Why was that particular location ferreted out and surveyed? If you guys have not made a decision, you didn't know what kind of plan they had, what brought that to that? Because from the standpoint of the general public,
Yeah.
that looks like a decision one has been made, especially when there's a survey made, and plus there was a meeting with the commissioners and people. So I mean, what you're saying, I'm having a hard time getting a hold of, because it looks like, from my viewpoint, just as a civilian, a person who, I mean, and I'm a veteran, I'm okay with a memorial. But the fact of the matter is, who made the decision to pick that particular spot? Because frankly, there's a lot of other spots out there that are a heck of a lot better than the spot you guys picked out, in my opinion. And so why was that spot picked? Why other spots were also looked at too, along with this? What brought the decision together to say, okay, yeah, we'll do that, and we'll go out there and survey, and then we'll talk about it some more. What brought on? I guess I don't understand how it happened that way.
Sir, can I get your name, please?
Yeah, John Roy.
Thank you.
Did you want to answer first?
Yeah. Why?
I'll take the blame for that.
You will?
Yes.
Dave.
They were talking about being out the lake, and that's right at the crossroads. Everybody comes to the lake. It'll be visible, you know. And then also there was a nice circle road goes around. It marked the spot without putting any more roads. It was already maintained and cut the grass. You know, when they first came, they wanted to be a little farther west in the tall grass. Well, that would make Isaac have to mow more grass. This has already been maintained. And it was, like I said, there was a nice boundary already made. I don't know if you drove down over the hill yet.
Yeah, I have a place out there.
Okay, well, yeah. So it's got a drive all the way around it. So you could circle the memorial, go on out. And that was my suggestion. And
But there are other places very similar to that.
We're gonna, when people from the public, since we have people online, if you do speak, please state your name.
Okay, Mr. Getterman.
yeah, I would just, you know, want to know why we picked that. And I've lived out there for 28 years, and I'm, you know, familiar with different places. And we feel that there'd be less vandalism on the north side of the lake than there would be on the south side in the future.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, you get over on the other side, there's no traffic or anything.
And so that it doesn't become in any way misleading when you use the term, because I'm going to listen to what's said. The decision, no decision. The decision in my eyes is something that we're obligated to follow through on. At this point, if they chose, say, well, we had it surveyed, you know, it doesn't look like that's gonna work, or you get this kind of input, or you go through planning and zoning and there are all massive types of issues, it stops right there. There's been nothing that's legally enforceable put in place, there's been no final commitment made, there's been no, the only consideration that's been involved in this is something that the county did to get an idea. Again, it's still a feasibility question. Does it even work there? What are we looking at and how much acreage is there? Does it fit what they have in mind and what do they have in mind? All of that is still in process. Really, it feels like, I think from what you've heard, like it's a lot further down the road than it is. It's not. They came in, said, hi there, we've talked about this for many years, we want to do it, we'd like to do it out at the lake. Then the discussion about, well, okay, let's talk about an initial spot came up, and then that survey element of it did go forward, but that was just to get an idea anyway as to what's out there and how much ground do we have and where are those roads located, and stake and pin this whole thing. So that's what was done.
Warren, did you come back and ask for, since you had no physical address, wasn't there something to that?
Yeah, we
Yes.
needed
A physical address?
Yes.
Yep.
And so the survey was on the land to get a physical address, and then it could be given a name or something to that effect. Yeah.
If it went
My
forward.
point is, by doing that, though, John Ron, my point is, by doing that, though, you actually selected a site. And to me, that's kind of getting the horse in front of, or the cart in front of the horse. And Dave, I'm sure what you're saying is, you know, has a lot of, but it's to the public though, and you ought to realize, I live out there part-time. We actually live, I farm down by Whitewater. And we have a place up there. My wife has her own bass boat, so that's why we're up.
My wife has a bass boat.
And I get to drive it. And and she catches all the fish. But the fact of the matter is, though, you know, we bought that place several years ago. You know, what the lake was used for, what it was looked like, was an important issue. And we actually sold a home down on Table Rock and moved up here because it was 5 hours down to Table Rock, and Dave, it was 5 hours back too.
Yes.
And I'm too old to drive that far. And so, but, you know, you've got really an asset here, this Marion County does. Besides the $1 billion tax base you've got out there. And but I'm not too far off on that. They would know. But, you know, what we're looking at and concerned about is, you know, how does that affect us? We know the lake doesn't belong to the community out there, it belongs to Marion County and the taxpayers, but we're part of Marion County, we're part of the taxpayers. And people come this way, if you roll the clock back 20 years, that lake doesn't look like it looks right now. There's been a lot of money spent out there in the last 20 years, making that place look really nice. And Isaac on board, you know, been a real good addition. Steve was too. It took it a long ways. And, you know, we're real concerned, you know, what we bought, are we gonna get? You know, our look is important to us. And it appears to us, though, that the site has been selected, and you just said it was selected there to get an address so you do the survey. That tells me that's it. And in my little world. But the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of other sites out there that are far, far better, less intrusive. And vandalism, no matter where you put that, is going to be a problem. Unless you do like the Whitewater community did, put it out at a cemetery. And it works real good. They have their little deal out there Memorial Day, and you know, people come in for quite a few miles around. They have people there. El Dorado put theirs on the courthouse lawn, works really good. And they did that in order to eliminate vandalism and all those things that go with memorials. Because we think out here we're just, people aren't gonna do what they do back east. And in California push statues down. But hey, what's out there, what's on the East Coast and the West Coast, eventually comes here. And vandalism will be a problem, I would bet, in not too many years on those type of memorials, because, you know, I'm kind of the last of the people that actually served in a war, actually. The rest of them have been, you know, little places here and there. There's not too many of them. You see them on TV every night with their legs shot off. And, but the fact of the matter is, though, the generation, the younger generation, they've never been through a draft. They don't they don't put the value on those kinds of things. The people my generation, your generation, our generation puts on it. And so vandalism will be a problem. You know?
I'm Warren Singer, and I've been working with this memorial, and I want to clear up one thing. It's a Marion County veterans. It isn't just VFW or Legion. It's all Marion County veterans that's working on this place.
So you're in correlation with VFW and the Legion?
I've been there for 50-some years.
No, I'm talking about your deal that you're proposing. You guys are doing that together, the American Legion?
And I told you, it's not just a Legion or VFW, it's a Marion County veterans. And that's one reason we went out the lake, because that's Marion County property, and that's registered for everybody. It isn't just certain people. And I'm getting the idea that you guys are trying to push us off to the back road someplace where we can't see it. And that ain't gonna happen. Not only that, I had some of them complain about the height of the place. Well, every one of you got a house that's higher than the memorial we're gonna build, and now you're trying to tell us we can't do it. That's it.
Brad, I got a few more points here, and these might be more pointed at you, but there's some of them might be kind of a legal question, but I'll go down in order here. This property started, the lake started in 1934. November 1934, there was a vote, public vote, the whole county, of whether we were going to do this. And it was promoted and it was voted through for recreational use, specifically for recreational use. Okay? In 1936, in order to advance this, there was a plan, a development plan that had to be approved by Washington. So this whole plan had to go to Washington. Again, in quotes, as a recreational center to be enjoyed by thousands from all over the county. In 1938, then there was another plan that was prepared, and it was more for how the lake was going to be operated, but again, there's another plan that was prepared. In 1939, the Soil Conservation Department was also involved in this. At that time, they formally turned the lake over to the county. And again, in quotes, this will afford recreation for thousands, okay? In 1940, the county adopted rules for how this was going to govern the recreational life of Marion County. Up until now, everything at the lake has been recreational. It's been all along the lines of what this was approved for. And I guess the question comes is how and why do we want to deviate from that?
And I guess that's a policy question.
And before you answer, have these documents been reviewed?
After I got your letter, they have.
Okay.
I didn't even know some of them existed, I'll be candid. I don't think a lot of us did. And so we started pulling all that together last week at my request, along with others, to start reading through that, and that's been a fair part of the weekend, thinking of you fondly about that. No, and looking through a lot of that. The question then becomes, and I don't have that finalized yet in terms of what I would consider the memorandable type of an opinion. Recreation is broadly construed, and you actually can get into observance of certain types of historical events, like in a park. You'll see it's a recreational facility, but they still go ahead and place monuments and various types of other remembrances and time capsules and those kinds of things in them as well. So I don't know that that's going to be considered an inconsistent use with what recreational was at the outset. I think it's a good question, and it's one I think Sharon commented on a little bit too. Kind of what we see is recreational gets to be much more than what you and I might think of as, okay, I'm going to go out there with a bass boat and fish. There's other types of things that people may consider recreational and like to have that kind of a memorial out there to just go out and sit and contemplate life out in the green area of the county in that regard. But I don't have that completely finished yet in terms of is that an issue that's inconsistent in some way?
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're getting those documents, because I started on it and it was like, my God, And he raised the question is why, it did raise a question in my mind, why aren't those documents readily maintained like in the museum or wherever? You know, why that hasn't been done, and maybe this will help promote that or get that done. So I do appreciate that, Brad. You can also understand, I worked for the government for 35 years, and I understand how these things can come out of nowhere and bite you.
Yeah.
Too, so. Kind of along that line is the entire lake has also been designated as a historical preservation site. And everything's built out of limestone, and there is a pattern in how things are. Does this jeopardize, does the construction of something that doesn't conform, you know, and I've worked with the Historical Preservation Society, they can bite you too. Is there a chance that this is going to throw the whole lake out of conformance with the Historic Preservation Society's designations?
The short form answer that I'll give, that I don't know that how do I say this one? I don't think so, largely because with that in mind, all of this has to be looked at, and there's a number of entities, like when this was all formed, like you were citing earlier, chronologically we went through a number of different entities and agencies in order to just get it in place. I think something like this is going to have some additional pieces to it. There's tentacles on this one that people don't even think of, and quite frankly I didn't either.
Yeah.
But as you look at it from that perspective, absolutely, I think it probably has to run through historical preservation in terms of what kind of a memorial would it be, what would it look like, what kind of materials would be used in order to be consistent so that we don't run that risk. So yeah, I think it adds some complexity to it, but again, that's part of the process.
Isaac's holding a book, and he said you got what, 37 copies of this, whatever.
I have about 5.
I took an afternoon and read through this book, and if you haven't done it, it's fascinating. It's the history of how the lake was put together. Unfortunately, it's all, I shouldn't say unfortunately, it's all put together from, I think, primarily newspaper articles, is that right? So like the documents we were talking about aren't included in that, but it raised the question in my mind, why aren't those documents available? And I know it's also fascinating when you go back to a map of the lake, and we were talking about recreation. You know, this had a baseball diamond, it had a golf course, there was all this other recreational stuff out there. And it's, to me, and to I think a lot of people sitting here, it seems like a deviation to now come in and put memorials there. So, and I say memorials plural because in my mind, we are setting a precedent, we're opening the door. So, I think that's kind of covers, you know, the issues I wanted to bring up. I also want the representatives from the VFW to understand there's nobody in this room that is opposed to Veterans Memorial. Everybody has the utmost respect for veterans. What our concern is the location. And I think there's numerous people in here that would agree that there's much better places for this, and places that would welcome a memorial. So.
All right, well, thank you for your time and the input. We appreciate all of you coming in. And definitely gave us a lot of
I don't know, does anybody else have anything to add before we scurry out?
I made it a point a minute ago, and that's where veterans stand. And there happens to be another memorial out there right now, which is right beside where we are, so that most likely would be the place to put it is all together. Or haven't you seen the CCC Memorial out there?
Yeah, no, I've seen it very well.
Well,
yeah.
That's there, and our Veterans Memorial probably won't stand up as high as that is, so I don't understand the problem you guys got.
So, well, we'll call the, thank you for your points. We appreciate that. We'll try to keep you posted as we move forward in the process.
Okay.
Thank you for listening.
Yes.
Anything we do, we'll come to you guys before we do anything.
A couple times, probably.
More than you actually know. You go through planning and zoning about 3 or 4 times.
Okay. We have lots of good questions.
Some of that stuff, okay, see if I can find that for you, just took National Archives. I actually found some of that way online. Some of those old
So it
records.
really? Because I contacted.
Yes, and then from the county, we got all the minutes, and got a bunch of pages to read, and hopefully I'll get that all amassed and give it to Isaac, and he can turn that into, it's gonna be a much bigger document.
But I did not know where to go to find it, and I've dealt, in my work, we dealt with the Historic Preservation Society quite a bit for construction type stuff that we had to approve. And they just told me to go to Washington, it's kind of,
Yeah.
you know.
Is Myron, is that the role of that Historical Preservation Society, to give you specific guidelines on how to build?
They
what
can't
it has
ask
to
you.
build?
We're going to, if you guys want to talk further later, we'd like to.
Oh, I thought we were still on.
Anybody who wants to just come in, you
I guess my question didn't get
We can
repeated.
go later.
I'll answer, I'll talk to you later.
please make sure you sign each one.
Thanks, guys.
Brad, in any of your research, have you come across anything and how long you have to
Since you two
stand by something?
you're on the list on the agenda, you don't have to sign.
By standby something.
Some of these resolutions and things that's done there about
Just
recreational
so that
activity.
the people on the
Where
online
does-
meeting can hear.
Okay.
Is there an ending period at some time?
Yeah, but when you change it, because these, when those were funded, we're well past those funding periods. So now if you, it's a county facility.
Yeah.
And so if you then want to make changes to that or look at a strategic plan that you put together and identify specific areas, that would be what would be in the traditional sense of what they were asking about as recreational, and others that would be more attuned to parks and memorials, that kind of thing. You can do that.
All right, is there any way we can close the door to reduce the noise?
I'll close it most of the way, but we
Thank you.
can't close it all the way.
Because it's impossible to hear online. Absolutely impossible. Thank you.
Hopefully that will help.
Very good. All right, Marcy and Patrick, thank you for being here today. There were some questions some of the commissioners had. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Dalkey, who wanted to ask some questions.
We upped your annual allocations here, last year, I believe. And we didn't up some of the others. And so when it come back this time, they want to know whether we do the same again or not. I was, there's been a deal with the sheriff. He's out right now. He hadn't been here for 1 week of training somewhere, and then this other week has been sickness. And so what my point was being is, what was we getting for the extra that we upped? And I have heard from, the only two people I've talked to so far is the undersheriff and the jailer over there, because the sheriff was not there. But they did say about some of the times that Prairie View has sent a person out to, when there's a person in need out in the field. And so that was my main point of being, is if you've heard it on the news here in the last 60 days, that a citizen, a young juvenile, was taken into custody and in Wichita. And if you followed that very far, there was a unit set up in Sedgwick County, and not ICU, but some sort of abbreviation for it. Well, they only work during the day. Well, I can tell you, I've got 20-some years in working as a police officer, and 1 o'clock in the morning is when I need you. And I've transported a lot of people to Prairie View when we transported to Prairie View and Newton. I talked to both of them. Both of them have been police officers in Peabody too, and done the same thing that I've done. And so my point being is, what do we have available from Prairie View in time of need for our police officers and sheriff's officers in this county between 4 o'clock in the evening or 5 o'clock in the evening and 8 o'clock in the morning? And so I was hoping my sheriff could answer that, but he's been out. And so right now, I don't have no answers to even give to you folks unless you can give me some answers back that I'm asking.
Yep, that's a fair question. And so we have a crisis clinician on staff 24/7 as the community mental health center. So as Prairie View Community Mental Health Center, we have a master's prepared clinician on 24/7. The primary obligation or responsibility for that clinician is for state mental health reform screenings, and that's set up through KDADs through the state. This is a question that is not new. This is I've had these discussions with some of the other counties that we provide services to, and Harvey County, which is our biggest county. That's where we had started a discussion. Oh, it's probably been about a year and a half ago, and we asked that exact question. And I think it's the critical incident response team or ICT-1, I think is in Wichita is what they call it.
Right.
And yeah, and it's this idea that there's like co-responders or co-mental health providers that ride along with law enforcement to address the exact thing that you're talking about. I have not specifically talked with Sheriff Kraft or anybody in Marion County about that need. I have not heard that, but in Harvey County, we assessed that need, and it was right around the time, like in the last year and a half, where there's a lot of kind of national attention to some of these things, and we revisited that, and the response was the volume of need is so low, and this was in Harvey County, but I'm saying this because Marion County has less people too. The need is so low for the actual number of incidents that occur. And for law enforcement, and like you probably would have memories of this, when it was real clear cut, when the person was actively suicidal, you came on scene, they had a plan, means, intent, or they had just taken a bottle of pills or something like that, you had the opportunity, and this still exists, and they need medical attention first to medically clear. So the local ED is the first best stop, and that is then when that crisis clinician who's on call 24/7 can be called to assess and screen and determine the next level of care. I still think that at some point from Prairie View and in our area, we're going to get to a place where we're going to have a sort of co-responder type situation. I just can't justify at this moment, like the lack of qualified clinical staff that we have available to meet everybody's needs, to have somebody on call and available to go out in the middle of the night for the handful of cases that maybe come up. I just can't justify that at this point. Now, with all that said, when we do have that crisis in the middle of the night or somebody's brought to a local emergency department, that access clinician, I mean, they're being called routinely in the middle of the night to do those screens. They are doing those all telehealth because a lot of things have moved to that, and that's better for the facility that the person's at, it's better for the person, it's better for the clinician. And that process is working. But that is kind of the current process. Yeah, and so I hope, does that answer?
Yeah, and Undersheriff did talk about KDADs and stuff.
Yeah.
And so he was mentioning some of that, but, and one of the points is what you just said is, there's very minimal cases it's not every night.
Right.
And it's not every month probably, but when we have the one that went as far as the one in Wichita did, then it draws a lot of point of view.
Yep.
And so,
Yep.
so all that drew this to when budget reports was,
Sure.
and so that's how this all come about. And
Mhm.
so, otherwise, what have you done with the extra few dollars that we've allotted you? That's my other question.
Yep, well, and that's, I guess the only other, I don't know what you talked, but my only other comment to that is, we have had some more situations where middle of the day, we're getting called out by local law enforcement to go on site. And I tell you, historically, we have not done that because of a variety of reasons. One, safety of our clinicians, but two, just funding and availability. And that is one thing that we have, like, I mean, I live in Marion County. I live in this area. I want us to be responsive to these needs. And when it works and we have people like staffing available to do it, we want to do it. My team of clinicians want to do it. It just stretches us a lot thinner when it's 2 a.m. versus when it's 2 p.m. So that's, I mean, I'd still like to continue to move in that direction, and we're just not there yet.
Okay.
I think what we as commissioners have heard over the last 2 weeks is what kind of brought this to a head. If you remember the headlines in the paper a few weeks ago, Marion County is now the Marion County Sheriff's now the mental health care provider for Marion County, and that came about through a situation that happened in Hillsborough where we had to have security for this person, and I can't quote the length of time that person was in the hospital, but to the public it was way too long because that individual needed mental health, not physical health. And I guess the time frame that it took to get that done was a big cost to our county because we don't have enough sheriff deputies the way it is. But when we have to dedicate a sheriff deputy or a city police officer to that, the health, safety, and welfare of our county residents are jeopardized.
Yeah, and just to speak on general situations there, that example that I was giving as far as our crisis clinician, that person went out on site that afternoon with local Hillsborough PD. Our clinician then later that afternoon screened for state hospitalization. The person was accepted to Larned for state hospitalization, and then we were made aware that they were closing all hospital admissions. And so that, honestly, I've been doing this a long time, but we've had periods of time where Larned will say, hey, we're at capacity, we got to close down, and it doesn't typically last very long, and it doesn't typically happen, because, Osawatomie State Hospital on the eastern side of the state, that's routine. On the Larned side, that has not been what the routine experience has been. And so I agree with all of what you said, and it all came together at a bad time. And I think in my conversations with the deputy secretary of the state hospitals at KDADS, I think at that moment there were 4 or 5 other counties, like community hospitals in other counties across the state, that were dealing with the exact same thing. And no one thinks it's a good idea, because everything that you just said is happening in the local communities, because law enforcement or other people are having to stay watch. I know in some counties the sheriff would rent a room in a local motel and get them out of the hospital, and deputies would stay with them in the local motel. In this particular situation, and probably in most situations that I'm going to come across, that's not the best plan either. And so
I think the main thing with this one was the level of aggressiveness and volatility of that particular patient. We would have done her more harm or risked her more than we could have benefited her because of her level of requirement. We don't have all of the medical equipment that she required to maintain in the hospital. And so we had lots of discussions with the county attorney about what's best for the patient. And if there was a way we could help out, we were more than willing to do so. But moving her to outpatient services would have jeopardized her safety and her well-being.
We just deal with that perception because, we do allocate a fair amount of money for Prairie View. And, when things like that happen in a rural county, everybody knows it right now. So perception has a lot to do with it.
In your dealings with other boards, same, I don't know the names of them across the state that you deal with, but does the same thing that you do for our county. Do they have any statewide sources that's created or are we all individuals trying to fight this project when maybe a statewide organization needs to? Maybe, I'm just asking, I don't know.
This was taken we're a part of an association for all CMHCs in the state of Kansas. So there is a group of us that all collaborate together. And so there was discussion about this. I think at the state level, there's discussion about opening up another state hospital that would house, 50 beds for other patients. The flip side of that is the workforce isn't there for that hospital. So you're taking away from Prairie View's workforce to open a hospital. So then we're no longer maintaining people in an outpatient setting. We're no longer doing least restrictive. We're only able to do more inpatient because that's where the workforce is. So it's a catch-22 about how do you fix the problem. And I don't think at the state level we figured that out yet.
Well, some of my questions have been answered. I'd like to talk to Rob, see if he had any ideas, but that's not been possible, so anyway, but I think you've answered a lot of my questions, and I appreciate that. But I can tell you, 2 o'clock in the morning, like you was talking about, trying to maintain that person, and everybody wants police officers to handle everything as gentle as they possibly can, and that is the correct action. But when you get down to it, if you've ever done it, if you've ever done with patients in your Prairie View, it's sometimes not possible. You have to use enough force to subdue the situation or whatever it is. And so yeah, that's when I wanted help out there. How much force do I have to use?
Right.
How much, just to get this patient to a hospital, get it to see somebody. And I know those two over there in Maine, since we all come from Peabody, we've hauled people to Newton, and I think the padded room. And when we turn them loose, why, you don't know what's going to happen. So, and do we feel sorry for you workers that have to deal with that? Yes, we did. So anyway, like I said, I just wanted some questions answered, and so thank you for. I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Okay, got the questions answered.
Yeah.
So, thank you guys for showing up.
Absolutely.
I know you guys requested $94,403, but we budgeted $93,000, so I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve the $93,000 and stay within our fiscal responsibility of budgeting.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Garing to fund Prairie View at $93,000. I'll second the motion. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carried 5-0. We really appreciate the work you do for our people. It makes a difference. It's just that it's such a struggle right now, and it's only getting more challenging.
Well, we appreciate the opportunity to be collaborative and to have these kinds of discussions, and we're here to help however we physically can.
Okay. Well, I again appreciate you coming. I think it really helped answer some questions. Hopefully, we can disseminate that out into the community.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you
Good to see
too.
you.
Good seeing you.
Take care.
All right, Travis. There's a lot of feedback.
I had to turn you up because they couldn't hear you.
That's my,
I think they're going to be all outside.
I believe we have Tim on from ARV.
yeah.
Tim, you got anything?
Is he on there, Tina?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
Can you hear us, Tim?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Good.
Very good. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
All right, so, you guys were busy last week, so we delayed it a week, but Tim has got the proposal and the HGAC buy contract. I don't know, Tina, did you print that off for the chair or not?
I did not print it.
Okay, I guess.
But I can.
That's fine, I have it here, for the chair, and, it looks like the grand total's $312,468.05. And, I just wanted Tim to be along, answer any questions, see where the board wanted to go with this. That's kind of the information we were asked to get. And Tim has done a fine job getting that to us. He can answer any more questions. He has a lot more questions than I can as far as that goes, but if you want to pass those down, I'm sorry I didn't make copies for everybody.
We've
but
got it on our screens.
Wonderful.
Yeah, anytime
Okay,
you get
cool.
a packet that thick, digital is always better.
Right.
It didn't need
So-
to be printed. Definitely. I think Commissioner Crowfoot had a question on page 80, no, it's 73, about one of the lights on the left-hand side. It wasn't quite right.
I think you left one off.
That's pretty particular, but I've got to leave a light
Pick
off.
up the little underground mood lighting. So
Yeah.
It shines like blue on the ground.
Underglow.
Oh,
Underglow. Okay. Yeah, we can.
Don't worry, we're going to give us some LED tape. No, we're going to spend it anymore.
Right, right.
That
So-
one didn't get any traction, but.
Right.
We
All right.
we
Are you
thoroughly
looking at that lighting?
He set me up.
Oh, okay.
I set Commissioner Crowfoot up on that one. But I think we had a very good discussion last time Tim was here about using the heavier duty truck, the advantages of the lift system, the COVID sanitation system. Yes, it's a big change from past ambulances, but it's to me, it's almost more than one generation advance. It's almost, we're skipping ahead significantly.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, the way I look at this is a lot of where I came from, what we were trying to do with trucks and the truck chassis. I was there for the changeover. I was on the committees when we changed from van bodies to pickup chassis. After we did that, we looked at, I mean, the wearability of tires. The front ends were heavier, and like I said before, the fact that AEV is building a superior product when it comes to crash rating and the durability of the box. We used to look at a lot of manufacturers that would crack out around the seams, things like that. The boxes were only good for so long. With the, and Tim will correct me, I'll say multiplex, but it's the type of wiring they're using now. I really see this being a box that can be refurbished down the road. I see a pickup chassis that's a F550 that can have anywhere between 150, 200,000. It's still a viable unit for something else that can be used within the county. I think that's really the biggest selling point. I think, you know, the word remount is not great with me, but the reason that is because we're remounting somebody else's box. I don't know whether that thing came from down in the Gulf Coast and then we got salt water. I don't know if it was in a flood in Houston. I don't know these things. To remount our own box that we know the history on and the quality of AAV's boxes, I absolutely could see that being a viable option in the future.
And you said this is gonna be a smoother ride?
Yeah, this has the, it actually is, it's got the liquid spring.
I mean, I've heard people.
Yeah, it's
say how rough it
is it, Tim, you'll have to jump in if it's hundredths of a second that thing recognizes and changes. It's a lot like an air ride system, only it uses hydraulic fluid in an airbag type situation. Absolutely night and day. Tim, can you correct that if I misstated it?
That's pretty spot on. It is a computer controlled enclosed hydraulic system, so it's calculating every second changes that it needs to make the computer ride good.
And that is the biggest complaint we get is the rough ride of an ambulance, but I have to tell them, one, I don't design the ambulance and engineer it, but I also don't fix the roads. So
We don't need to go there.
Is the
highways, I don't fix the highways.
We talked about rebates on that initial discussion. Is the 7,500, is that actually the rebates? It says discounts.
That's Ford rebates, is that correct, Tim?
Well, it says Ford, but then it says discounts, so I don't see anything about rebate.
Yeah, so that price includes AAV and ARV discounts as well as the Ford GPC discount.
But I mean, doesn't Ford have rebates on their vehicles? On their trucks?
If you have a fleet identification number and a PIN code, they will provide a basically a purchasing incentive.
That's after you buy it, you have to send in for a rebate, right?
I think.
We handle all of that on our end.
Yeah.
So do we know what that is?
It's already there, isn't it?
On these trucks, we're putting it right at 3,000.
Through Ford.
3,000 on top of the 7,500?
No, that's built into that number. So the AAV and the ARV discounts here at 40, 45, 32.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, it's $3,000 Ford rebate by having an FIN, and then the discount that the AEV and the ARV get is the 40 whatever and change. So it adds up to the 7,500. So
Yeah, that's correct. And to be 100% honest with you guys, Ford hasn't released their GPC pricing for the 2023 model year yet. So what we've done is we've just gone ahead and established a $3,000 rebate on that. If that number goes up, which it may, obviously the final invoice price will reflect that.
Other questions? Just I can't remember where I saw it.
Did you highlight it?
No, it just dawned on me. Where it talks about the truck being a certain year and then something else and then it's another year. I was trying to get to where that.
I think, Jonah, I'm not sure exactly, I don't have it in front of me anymore, but I think I know where you're talking. It went from 2020 to 2021 and then
Yeah.
21 to 22.
Yeah, and I was wondering, are we getting,
An upcharge twice?
upcharge? Yeah, 3 times here.
Right. Tim?
Can't remember where I saw it. I thought it was at the end, but I can't see it there.
I recall seeing that as well.
Yeah, so the pricing that we have included is for the 2023.
Yeah, Tim, in the line item on the build spec, I believe it showed 2020 to 2021 chassis, 21 to
Page
22.
38.
Page 38.
You find it for me, Dave.
It showed a couple, I think it was a $600, $700 upcharge to gain those years. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, page 38 of our packet. That doesn't tell him much.
Yeah, you should have it. It's his packet.
It's in the unpublished options.
The last page
And
of the.
I have a feeling I might be able to answer that. I don't know if I think he's sitting in an airport, but I believe, Jonah, that if that pricing came out, then they add the upcharge for each year. You're just seeing it reflected that way. You know what I mean? They're showing the increase from the original. If that was a 2020 documented price, then that's an upcharge for the year from 20 to 21, and then we're gonna have one from 20 to 22. The percentage or the price that it increases every year.
Yeah. Travis is right on there. When AAV provided pricing to HGC, they were for the 2020 chassis. The published and unpublished pricings are only updated every couple of years. And as far as like the full suite goes, we can add options. And what we've done is add the increase to cover the model year.
Okay, have you and Travis sat and went over the diagram and everything so that, just like down at the last page here, it says after confirmation and production starts, change fees $100 per item plus 200% option cost, depending on where additional labor charges are, and I know some things happen no matter what, but have we tried looking at every corner of the ambulance? Because I myself, when I started, we was buying them at 100 to 120,000, and now we're at 312, and we're still getting rid of them in less than 100,000 miles. So I think we as commissioners have to figure out how we can get that 150,000 out of them and make them last twice as long at the price that we're paying.
Yeah, so one of the things that I do before I confirm any order is sit down and go over that item by item with Travis and whoever else we would like to have in. That way, by the time we actually enter the order for production, they know 100% exactly what to do.
Yeah, and we've sat down, yeah, Randy, we've sat down once,
Okay.
went basically line by line, we looked at, we measured our compartments, we made some changes, but yeah, every process I've been through, it's every nut and bolt.
Yeah.
By the time we're ready to
So what
stamp
did you
it.
leave off that you didn't get? What options?
That's a nice question. How big of this is a want list?
What don't we have?
We don't have a color scheme. I don't remember. That's
We don't have
$3,000-$4,000. Yeah, I mean everything adds
Okay.
up. And we did. We looked at different color options, but it added money. So we're back to the white. There's different communication things in the front, iPad or computer stuff that the directory, things like that just they start adding money. A lot of what we have.
Is there a pass through to the box?
There is not a pass through. There is a talk through.
Okay.
There's a visual.
You have to get out to get
box. Yeah, and that actually bodes very well for noise, road noise, that kind of thing. They've choked it down to where it's a smaller pass through and insulated that, so we don't get a lot of road noise. So.
And that happens with the old van bodies. You
Yep.
just rake it, go through them. Yeah.
Sure.
Well, in my small world where there's a lot less zeros behind things than what we look at, I did do a little research and found out that there is actually a national average price for a new ambulance. Now that's wrapping a big universe around it. But as of the other day, the national average price of a new ambulance was $305,000.
Okay, so we're close.
So that told me we were at least with
We're close.
and maybe we even got a good deal. I don't know.
Well,
That's why you encourage them to ask that question about the extra bells and whistles.
Sure. And I think when you look at that, you look at the power load, the power cost.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
There's
this was
40,000.
just,
Yeah, not
this was
everyone's
just a
gonna have
conglomerate
that.
of what's
Sure.
been bought.
Yeah.
So there's cheaper and evidently there's some that's higher.
There's some that are a lot higher.
Now, I know I've asked this, but the 6.7 liter, for sure, that's not the wrong engine.
It is not a 6.0 power stroke. They don't do that anymore. The 6.7, it's not the 6.4 that was the predecessor, or well, it was an attempt.
I don't remember, but I know it was one of them.
The
And it
6.0 and
it
then
was
the
a power
6
stroke.
Yep, it was a 6-liter power stroke. Was terrible.
Yeah, the 6 liters and the 6.4 liters were both plagued with issues. The 6.7's been out now for either 8 years or 10 years, and it's just been an absolute workhorse.
Yeah, I was gonna say 2012 was the 6.7. The 6.4 was an attempt to fix the 6-liter in my mind, and we still own a 6-liter. It's one that needs to go away. So I just don't trust it. So yeah, we're okay with the 6.7.
Good questions. I don't own very many Fords, so.
Oh, well,
I mean,
okay.
I just.
No, and I'm totally
make
fine.
sure.
I'm totally fine with that. Tim, to go to Chevrolet, what's the price? Yeah, he didn't want to say it.
I'm sorry, was that question about?
I think Chevrolet was like another $20,000.
Oh, yeah.
So there's another bell and whistle I didn't get. So
All right, further questions? If not, do we
Yeah,
have a
I don't want this to seem like a sales tactic, but I should be upfront with you. We are seeing prices in commodities as well as components increase, so that's, we saw a 9% increase at the beginning of February.
Very good. If there's no further questions or discussion, is there a motion to proceed with the purchase of the ambulance for $312,468.05?
I would make that motion to pursue that.
Is there any flexibility in that number at all? I mean, I know that they were going at that. I just want to make sure, because the next level is we're trying to put that number into our ARPA.
yeah,
And I want to make sure that that's it.
yeah, and I think that's a valid question. I think, Tim, if you're a little quiet when I hear you, but if anything, when we start looking at nuts and bolts, what does that do?
Well, first of all, my apologies. I'm standing in an airport terminal.
Sure.
As far as pricing goes, through AEV and REV, they have enacted some retroactive pricing on us for orders that we've had placed. As a dealership, we don't believe that that's good way to handle business, so we essentially went ahead and because when you guys sign a sales agreement, or if we sign a sales agreement, that's the number that you're anticipating on, and that's the number that we're going to use. So anything that would change from essentially from here out would be changes that you guys would want to make, say during the pre-build meeting before we confirm it, or at any point in time.
Yeah.
And I don't, Joe, from what we have preliminary went through each line, I don't foresee an issue. I really don't.
We never do.
I understand that, and understand that I've been through this process on ambulances and fire trucks both, and as salesmen, but I've worked both sides of it to give and take to come up in at a number. If that's the number he says he'll put this signed, sealed, delivered. If we have to give up something to gain something, we can work that out.
Am I getting Jonah right? Were you asking, when it's delivered here, are we gonna have to spend some more dollars on it? Nothing.
No, sir. We're net on delivery, and unless it's anything that Travis or you guys as the commission want to change on the truck, that price is going to happen.
There'll be some incidentals that we'll have to pay for. I mean, you're gonna have to suit it a little
Put fuel
bit.
in it.
Yeah.
But no, it should be full when it gets here, right, Tim?
Yeah, I'll have it full of diesel and
Wash.
DEF, and I'll wash it up.
Good. So, no, as far as cot, the load system, obviously the loose equipment, it's gonna come out of a unit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
That's
not-
what I was meaning.
Sure.
The incidentals that have
Right.
to go in there.
Right.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. We have a second from Commissioner Garing. Further discussion? Yes.
One question you said, we're going back to a white.
Correct.
Is there any reflective tape on there to have colored?
I mean, it's the same, it'll be the same scheme as what we have on our.
The reason why I said, I can almost identify our units when
Yeah.
when I see you on the road, that's a Marion County one.
Mhm.
And so I don't wanna really I mean, I'm just asking
You
the
don't
rest of
wanna
the
change
commissioners,
it.
I mean, I don't wanna change the bid, but yet, I
Yeah.
didn't, I just wondered if that's what we're doing.
Tim, that's a valid question. I hadn't talked to Tim directly about it, but the lettering scheme, Tim, that's on our units, that's what you anticipate, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
I'm pretty sure of that. So yeah, it would be different looking because it's gonna be a pickup chassis.
Right,
As far
right.
as scheme and lettering, it will be what we currently have. Reflective on the back, the KKK standard, is that implemented on this unit, Tim? With the chevrons?
Yeah, so we've accounted for that in that pricing,
Okay.
but again, ultimately, that's one of those things that you and I can sit down before production and really nail down.
Right.
Okay.
And so that's an example of where something could go away
Yeah.
and be a money savings and work things out, but again, there's little places in there that
It's a
can
safety
happen.
factor.
Yep, it is a safety issue.
Spending this much money, it just needs to be right.
Right, absolutely.
That answers my question.
Okay. We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carried 5-0. Thank you, Tim.
I'd like to also make a motion that we add.
You're very welcome, gentlemen, thank you. Travis, I'll get in touch with you here shortly, if that's okay with you.
Sounds great. All right,
Jonah.
safe flight.
I'd like to make a motion that we add to the ARPA numbers that we had for worksheet the other day, the $312,500.
Very good. We have a motion, plugging that number into our ARP budget. Second by Kent. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion carried 5-0.
Thank you. My apology, we generally call it triple K, but those are the people that regulate standards for. I want to clarify who that is we're talking about is triple K. Sets the standards for the.
It could really be read.
Yeah, it could, yeah, absolutely. And then,
Do you want a signature on it?
I'll give it to you. I'll visit with Sam, we'll get it signed for sure. Yeah, I'll take that back. And then if you have just a quick minute, update on the station. Ceiling tiles in, all the door openers showed up, so all the doors are functioning. Cabinetry, countertop, that type of stuff will start tomorrow. Appliances should be delivered tomorrow. It's really starting to come together. If anybody's in the neighborhood or wants to give me a holler or Cody, feel free to stop in and have a sneak peek. But I'm really looking at.
So your schedules staying the same as far as moving in?
I'm really looking March 1st is. I think we could be a little earlier than that, but
Stick with it.
I'm going with March 1st. So.
Yeah, I just seen that the guys weren't there for a week, and it was because they brought the flooring guys in before the ceiling was done, and it made me question why that was so pressing.
Yeah, scheduling with the flooring guys, and actually things got moved back because of the sheetrock finishers, COVID. So there were some issues there that pushed things back. Flooring guys had us locked in on that date just based on their availability.
I just want stuff to fall and scratch.
Yeah, and
why can't they be the last ones in?
I know, and I don't disagree, and I'm looking at sheetrock dust on a polished, and now that is polished concrete. It's not like we're on a carpet with making it nasty, but
I may have a perspective on this. So I'm just trying to figure out why.
Sure.
There's that thought process there.
okay. And like I said, just I know the moving parts. That's what was explained to me, Jonah. Not in that world. You are, so.
All right, thank you,
All right.
Travis.
All right, thank you guys.
What ambulance will fit through the door?
Yeah, it will fit.
Okay.
Yep. All right.
Oh, you're already determining that this one's going over there.
No, don't start that. We'll figure out where
I
it
should
goes.
say that again. We'll fit through all the doors. Was my
I heard the guy made the motion for those two.
It's gonna fit through all the doors.
Say what?
The guy made the motion for the town.
Yeah.
What if I move?
Welcome, Rice.
Hi. Since I'm last again.
So did you get put last?
Yeah, he did.
Come on, let's pass some towels down here for him. Go ahead.
That ain't gonna go very far.
I've already tried to help him today. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think it probably has to do with that. When I get done, I probably have to meet with.
Yeah, I think you create the executive
Is that what it
sessions.
is? Okay, okay. So, could be. First thing is a salary change.
The one in with the staff?
No, I had it down with me, so.
Okay, salary change for Perry Clausen from 2586 to 2662, effective 1/21/22, and that's the change from EO1 to EO2, and that is the Road and Bridge Department.
Able to resolve the situation you had the other day? You said you were bringing in pay or salary sheets, and something popped up on it. I can't give too many details because it'll name
Yeah,
somebody.
I'm drawing a blank right now, but.
It's apparently resolved because I can't remember.
Okay.
Did you see
You
this?
brought in 4.
Yeah.
And you were talking about a 5th.
Oh, no resolution. That's done, so. Received a call this morning from Dickinson County. Just FYI, they're going to be closing the county line at 370th and Upland going north. They're going to be redoing a bridge up there. So it won't have anything to do with us, but they are going to put an advance sign on 360th in Upland, basically saying they're going to be closed. So they are, I'm kind of interested, they're building their own bridge, driving their own piling, stuff like that. So according to what he says, they're down around $120,000. So I'm kind of interested to go up and see what's going on. But,
You're gonna watch it, huh?
well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely something we can do, and that's a huge deal. But I think he said it was 35, 40 feet span, something like that. So anyway, but just FYI that we put signs up, he said they can get it down in 21 days, he said, which I thought was pretty good.
That's moving right along.
Yeah.
This time of year.
Yeah. I finally got the schedule for getting the geotech in to do some borings and testing stuff like that. Me to go at 190th is scheduled for about 2 weeks. As I called them first part last week, and that was the earliest they could do it. So we'll try to get something resolved there. So the only other thing I have, unless you guys something else, would be the executive session to talk about personnel. So probably 10 minutes.
That's our last item, so is that all right?
How's the engineering going for Indigo and Kansas?
That's what I was just saying. I do have a meeting, or supposed to have a meeting sometime this week, hopefully, with somebody to look at the Kansas intersection.
Okay.
But as far as the rest of it, with that's what I said, got to kind of get the coring or whatever else to find out to make sure we're
Yes, Mr.
There's a big power line there on the west side of that.
Well,
I didn't realize that till I drove it after the meeting last week.
There's
Lots of stuff there.
Yeah, a lot of stuff there on the west side too. I was thinking of the east side, but there's one on the west side there too.
There's
So
gonna be some other things happening pretty soon too.
Yeah, there's
Big power lines.
Yeah, there's a substation on the east side, and there's a big power line pole on the west. So yeah, and then I'm sure there's fiber optic and everything else. We'll probably got a gas line too, you know. But
moving on.
Well, on that note, I move that we recess into executive session in order to discuss personnel performance pursuant to KSA 75-4319B. Item 1 for personnel matters and non-elected personnel performance with Bryce, Commission, Brad, and Tina. Is there a second?
Second.
All those
Did you
in
say
favor?
how long?
Oh, 10 minutes?
yeah, 10 minutes is fine.
So it'll be from 3:55 to 3:56 to 3:06. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No, I'll get it.
Who was the second on that? Okay.
One of them.
Let me see if I can get it.
Appointment.
I got a 4 o'clock appointment.
Okay, who's below?
No, headed south.
Newton?
No,
Okay.
no, not this time.
This conference will now be recorded.
Very good. We are out of executive session, no decisions made, but we are going to move into another executive session on, pending
Potential.
potential litigation. So I move that we recess into executive session in order to discuss pending litigation pursuant to KSS.
Potential.
I can never keep the two P's straight. Not pending. So it is potential.
Potential.
I'll write it in big letters. Potential litigation pursuant to KSA 75-4319B for consultation with our attorney. That's item 2, attorney-client privilege with Bryce, Commission, Brad, Tina for 5 minutes. We go in at 3:10 and come out at 3:15.
10 minutes?
5.
Oh, okay. Second.
3:10 to 3:15.
Okay.
Function level 320.
Okay, with second by Commissioner Gehring. Is there any further discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
This conference will now be recorded.
We're out of executive session, no decisions made. Unfortunately, it was a little further, we need to do a little further discussion. So I move that we recess in executive session in order to discuss potential litigation pursuant to KSA 75-4319B for item 2, consultation with our attorney-client privilege with Bryce, Commission, Brad, Tina, or 5.
10.
10. I'm going 10. For 10 minutes from 3:16 to 3:26. Second by Commissioner Gehring. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Moving back.
All right, one more slide.
You said take off, so.
What that is.
He told me to take off.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
But too bad the camera got turned on just
Yeah, that would have been better had that been on.
I had a
Tina,
teacher in high school.
I better run long enough. Yeah.
You'd always tell him, you're standing in front of the chalkboard, and you move, and he just.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right, we're out of executive session, no decisions made. And I believe Mike has some public comments, so we've got 3 minutes, Mike.
3 minutes.
Yep, that's the policy.
Okay.
That's today. Nope, that is the policy.
Have it here.
6, 7 years ago, kind of community kit met around the corner at the Dye Bridge on Blue Stem. And the question was, they were gonna put a tank car in, still leave the crook in the road. And we all objected that we would rather see the road straightened than if and when they did that. So there's rumor that that project might be in progress again.
Okay, what was the address?
Blue Stem.
Just south of Blue Stem, or south of 280th on Blue Stem, first bridge you come to. Do we have the right to know what they're doing this time, if they are further in that project? To approve or not approve what's being done?
Honestly, no knowledge of any of that.
Right. It hasn't been brought to us
Yeah,
yet.
and a bridge is a huge dollar item, so I think we would have.
It's a tank car.
Okay, well then.
And then south of Phil's, a mile down, was straightening that.
So you're talking about where the road hooks off to the left and you drop on down to the right?
If you stay to the right at the Y, then when you go around that next curve, has that sharp bend and little drop off past Phil's driveway. That had some damage on it, so it needs replaced.
All right, we'll check and find out.
So the whole community would kind of like to know, since our suggestion was we would rather wait, see funding, or that road goes straight through. Not only, and now our young drivers are probably old enough, it's us senior citizens that need to be concerned about getting through there without crashing them. So the community would kind of like to know what plan is or isn't. If we could find that out, that we approve our tax dollars being spent there the way we'd like to see it. If that's not too much to ask. And I ain't got over Thursday morning, but we won't go into that yet. The majority of you know.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
See ya.
Commission comments, I just have one comment, the Dan Drive discussion that was supposed to be today, we've moved to February 22nd.
The what?
Dan Drive at the lake. We were gonna pick that up this week, and we're gonna wait till the 22nd, get a little more information. And the interested parties were notified before the meeting today, so they didn't have to come in. The next thing, keep on your calendar, the February 14th meeting. We're gonna have a work session starting at 10 a.m. To discuss bond charter resolution. The attorney with the charter resolution information will be here, so we can discuss that at 10 a.m. on Monday, the 14th. 11 a.m. we have the road seal bid opening, and then regular session at 12:30.
The first one starting at 10.
10, yes. Does that, did I get everything? Other commission comments?
Make a motion to adjourn.
One quick thing, the following meeting will be at the 22nd, because the 21st is a holiday.
Right.
Joan has a motion to adjourn, is there a second? Second by Becker, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay, motion carried 4-0.
We have a meeting on 2/22/22.
Yes.
That's magical.
Valentine's Day.
It's also packed in Las Vegas for weddings.
Yeah.
Completely.